Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hello, welcome to the show. I always semi-avoid saying that because it's my voice that says welcome to the show
in the
thing.
intro.
So I never want to sound repetitive, but it's Monday.
It's Monday.
November 4th. Election day is tomorrow. And Megan, I'm mostly excited that my phone's going to stop getting 80 text messages a day. But it's not election day yet. Megan, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
It was good. I voted. So I'm a registered voter in El Paso County, actually. So I had to drive down to Colorado Springs.
I thought you were going to say, I'm a registered voter in El Paso, Texas. It's like,
yeah.
All right, well, let's stop the show and learn about this. But,
that's between me and the government.
yeah.
And that's enough on that.
But you had to go down to the Springs.
Yeah.
My wife and I voted this weekend as well. We dropped our ballots and I said, all right, we did our civic duty.
Yes.
We participated in voting. I highly encourage everyone, if you are able, make sure you go out and vote by tomorrow. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just saying we are very lucky that we have the right to vote. Make sure you go out and vote. Voter turnout is one thing that always upsets me. There's so many people who have the ability to vote or even registered, have gone through the whole rigmarole of it,
right,
and don't vote. Make sure you get out and vote before tomorrow, folks. Anything else newsworthy from your weekend?
No, we celebrated a neighbor's 64th birthday.
Nice.
So,
that's all right.
Yeah, combined a few things into one trip.
Yeah. Oh, down in the Springs.
Yeah, he's down in my parents' neighborhood.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Megan, yeah, it was a kind of a quiet weekend for me as well. Was able to sneak away to the mountains a little bit with my lovely wife. We did a post-game show from up there, and we checked in on the Eagles, all of that. So nice, kind of quiet, relaxing weekend. And then the Avs woke up this morning and were like, oh, that's all done. Yeah, chaos. Just news, breaking news here, breaking news there. Chaotic morning, eh?
A little bit. Like, we knew Lehkonen was expected to return Tuesday, so could have counted on him being somebody we'd see at practice, probably get availability for, but the Nichushkin news completely changed things. Yeah. I think it's hard to say what had the biggest pull, right? Like, would the Lehkonen news by itself have had that kind of pull? I think the Nichushkin news is kind of what sent it over the top in terms of media being present at practice today.
It was, we were laughing because the media room was full. And we said, well, when it looks like this, it's one of two things. It's either playoffs or there was some big breaking news. And it was definitely the latter there. We have Jared Bednar's full availability today. We had a slight equipment malfunction. So big shout out to our friends over at Fox 31 here locally. We always like to jump on their show, talking with Aaron and Mick and all of them. Taylor, who was there, Kilgore up until just recently, had another kid and, took a step away, but we love chatting with them. So they helped us out a little bit today. So we do have Jared Bednar's full availability because I suck at my job, apparently.
There's too much going on.
There's too much. Thank you, Megan. You're right. There is too much going on. But so we will have that coming up for you guys in just a couple moments because, Megan, you made the point, I think, when we were leaving, you said there was a lot of stuff in that presser that I feel like deserves some larger conversation. Broad strokes, what we saw today at practice.
Okay. I felt there was a rejuvenation in the group. They're on the ice just a couple minutes earlier than they even need to be. There's a couple guys out there working early, especially some of the injured guys trying to get back to play form, like a Drew N. That isn't unusual, but I think just everyone getting out there a couple minutes before that 11 a.m. ice time start, it felt like there was an excitement around the group to have some reinforcement there finally, and I think McKinnon experienced frustration on the power play, but I actually think it's kind of a welcome sight to see it because I think there was this feeling of now that Lehkonen's back, things can return to a little bit of normalcy. And so he was probably feeling some frustration and things not completely connecting for him there on the power play because overall I felt the spirit was really light. There was a little bit of levity. They added the shootout at the end just to have a little bit of fun with it. And you could just feel the difference. It did feel like they recognize the excitement of some cavalry returning to this group.
Yes. Well, and you know, this is, and maybe this is me giving a little bit too much credit because you know, we saw the emotion from Nathan MacKinnon. That to me almost looked like, all right, we can have expectations again.
Exactly. No, exactly. Especially on himself. Like, I can better be Nathan MacKinnon when I have Artturi Lehkonen in the lineup.
Yes.
So I need to be Nathan MacKinnon.
Seriously, that was what it looked like to me. Was not just that portion of it, but all of practice looked like, all right,
let's take this seriously.
Right. For lack of a better phrase, though, like, hey, we're plussing today. We're not minusing at practice. We're plussing today. And I thought that was infectious. I thought you could feel it. And I think that's a great call out of they were out there a little bit early. Guys were on the ice. Guys were feeling it.
Let's get to work.
Right.
Finally, the work can really begin. They've been hampered by the inability to really completely get to work. Not that they've been lacking in the work ethic department. I just think there was a sense of, all right, no one's feeling sorry for us, or we're not feeling sorry for ourselves, and we have less reason to feel sorry for ourselves. We've got help on the way now.
Yeah, that's who was it? Oh, it was last week when I was talking to Josh, and you know, he made that argument of like, not no one's feeling sorry for us, but like, yeah, everyone's dealing with their own stuff. Maybe is it happening a little bit worse to the Avs injury wise? Yes, but he made that point too of like, there's nobody out there that's going to give you a pass just because you're dealing with injuries.
Yeah,
everyone's got, you know, turmoil in the locker room. Everyone's got stuff that they're dealing with. Every guy is a little bit injured. And I just thought it was, like you said, it's just refreshing to today be able to break out of that mindset just ever so slightly. Before we get to the clip from Jared Bednar, anything else, Megan, for you that you want to talk about before we get into Jared Bednar's comments from today?
No.
All right, let's do it. Jay, let's go ahead and roll. Jared Bednar talking to the media today after practice. Artturi Lehkonen and Val Nichushkin both participated in the skate. Let's hear from JB.
Go ahead.
Did you guys get word this morning that Val was going to be able to practice with you, or was there any kind of meeting ahead of time?
No, we got news a couple days ago.
Okay.
How did it feel to kind of have him back in a team practice setting?
Yeah, it's good. It's great. Need all the help we can get. So adding a quality player like Val back, even if it's just for practice, and we know he's going to be like, when he gets cleared to join the team, then he'll be ready to go.
Just like a team morale standpoint, how nice that you had Lehkonen back out there today, full participant, Val back out there today, Drew's back out there, to get some guys that are back in the lineup instead of guys constantly coming out.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're getting close, right? So Lucky's going to play tomorrow. We don't know exactly when the other guys are going to get back in, but every player that we add just helps another line and probably boosts someone down the lineup to where they're playing against the right level of competition. So every guy we get back in, things start to shape up a little bit the way we want them to look.
Have you gotten any clarity on Val Nichushkin November 13, if that's something that is a possibility, or is that something that might drag till 15th?
Yeah, it's the 15th. Yeah.
What qualities does Artturi Lehkonen have that make him a unique player?
Well, he's a puck hound, plays bigger than his size, high hockey IQ, can play with skilled players, but it's really I would say the relentlessness on the puck and being able to win races, battles, make plays in traffic, under pressure, intelligent plays, high percentage plays that lots of other guys can't make, you know. Like he's a playmaker in his own way, and oftentimes it's just winning the 50-50 touch, and he's tenacious on pucks, so when he wins those touches, good things happen.
And then just to clarify, have you gotten word that he's reinstated on the 15th, or is that just the first possible able to play?
Well, that's the same question.
So,
yeah. 15th will be he'll be good to go. Yeah.
Do you see it Lehkonen kind of transitioning back into the lineup pretty smoothly, or do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's been skating and practicing a long time now, so, It's always different when you get in the game, right? But he's worked extremely hard on his conditioning. We like where he's at when it comes to that. There still is a little bit of an adjustment period. Like, I'm not expecting perfection from him game one, but because you're putting yourself in game-like situations in practice, but it's different, right? The intensity is different in a game, so there'll be, like I said, slight adjustment period. But I'm pretty sure Lecky's going to bounce back quickly.
Christoph seemed all over the puck on his debut. I guess just general thoughts of what you thought of his first game.
I thought he was outstanding. Yeah, in every aspect of the game. Defensively sound. You know what he did? He basically showed us in a regular season game, a high-intensity game that was pretty tight checking on both sides of the puck, that he was – like, that was a low-event game on what we gave up and a low-event game on what we created. Because pressure was coming all over the ice from both teams, and yet he was solid defensively. Means he had to do the early work to get in the right spots to defend, and then he still created a couple great chances. I thought he could have had 2 goals in that game under tight checking circumstances. So all in all, managed the puck well and was contributing on both sides of it. So I thought he was outstanding.
Sure, by the 15th, you could have Val, Drew, and you have Lecky back. I talked to Logan about just the trickle-down effect of that for the roster. Like, what is this? How different is this lineup for you once you reach that point?
Well, it's completely different. It's completely different. Like, if you look at, and some of these guys have done a really nice job. I'm not going to take away anything that that you guys don't already know, or anything away from the players that have come up and played pretty well for us. But it's different expectations from a guy like Lecky, Val, Drew than Ivan, Kovalenko, Prishopov, right? It's just so they've done a nice job, but we've got Tynan, Wagner, Prishopov as a fourth line. We've got Ivan, Kelly, and Covey, right? So you got 5 young guys that were all, probably penciled in the American League, depending on what our health is. It's almost 2 lines of guys that are up and playing their butts off and playing as well as they can. But you're taking away, like, this is the first year and one of the first times that we've experienced where we're creating a lot of scoring chances, but we're shooting under expected. Because when you. Like, Prishopov plays great the other night. He gets 2 scoring chances. They don't go on the back of the net. You give those 2 chances to Drouin or Lehkonen or Val, and pucks find their way to go on the back of the net. That's what they've kind of established throughout their careers, right? So it makes a big difference so that when you can score some timely goals off your chances, then you can play with the lead a little bit more, and team starts to get confidence, and that's how it all, the trickle down is there. And when you add those guys to the lineup, we're just going to become deeper and deeper through our top 12.
Organizationally, how exciting is it though that those guys we were just talking about, big call up, and maybe kind of made it difficult for you guys to say which guy stays, which guy goes down, because it seems, from my perspective, they've had some good showing so far.
Yeah, well, we right out of the gate, I think you think about our team when it's healthy, we like our depth. And some guys have hit through training camp, exhibition, now regular season. Some guys have missed, but we've got some good options there. They might not have been the exact guys that we might have thought they were going to be coming into camp, but nonetheless, there's still really good options. Like, Wags has played well for us. You look at Prishopov, you look at Kovalenko, look at Ivan from the young guys. They played well. They've played some really good games for us, and they've been contributing. So you get healthy, some of those guys will stay, some will go, but it's still really good options if you get an injury here or there that the guys can come up. And if one guy stumbles a little bit, you can give another guy a chance, and they've shown they can come up over short spurts and play well.
In the past, with some of the young prospects, they've come up in games and haven't had a loud performance from your perspective. What do you think is different about this batch of prospects that has allowed them to come in and make an NHL impact?
Well, I think when you're talking about guys like Ivan and Prish, we saw it through training camp and through exhibition, and now in the regular season at times, that they're really responsible guys. So they not only take pride in being able to sort of chip in offensively, whether it's with the Eagles or with us, but also they're in tune with the checking game, and they understand what it looks like to be a 200-foot player. And I think that that's not something that we just ingrained in them right out of training.
Oh, I don't know what happened there, but it just shut off. Oh, it just ended. Interesting. All right, we still had a couple minutes on it, I thought, but here, hold on, let's see.
Start of the season.
Nope, doesn't want to play the rest of it, Megan. But that's basically the gist of it there from Jared Bednar. Sorry about that. You caught us a little unprepared. We're going to talk Lucky. We're going to talk Val. We're going to talk Gabe Landeskog. We get in a little bit too there as well. Sorry, now I can hear their conversation. That threw me off like crazy.
There's too much going on.
Again, too much going on. Too much going on. That's all right. Megan, let's start here. A lot to unpack there. Jared Bednar on these practices is always very, very generous with his time. Let's start with Artturi Lehkonen. You heard him talk about it. Puck hound, kind of a Swiss Army knife type player. Nathan MacKinnon told us in the locker room, this is one of the league's elite two-way players. Artturi Lehkonen coming back into the lineup tomorrow. How big? It's one player. How big is this for the Avs?
It's huge. We've looked at some of the issues over the last course of games being a finishing problem. And Jared Bednar made the point in that interview that as well as some of these young guys have stepped into the lineup and have showed confidence to create opportunities like Prishapov at the net front, you make that an Artturi Lehkonen, or he used the example of Jonathan Drouin, and that might go in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the skill upside and the experience that a player like Lehkonen brings that will be a difference maker in terms of creation. I think that's where this team is looking for a little bit more 5-on-5, because on the whole, they've been consistent in terms of volume, in terms of creating lots of opportunities throughout the course of the game, and for the most part, creating dangerous opportunities. They've just lacked a little bit of finish. And I think a player like Lehkonen, who is that Swiss Army knife of a player, so versatile in what he can do, just helps you to better come up with pucks, but has a little bit more of a finishing touch than like a Kiviranta.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they were looking for in having him on the top line, as some of these guys have been out of the lineup, but you add just a little bit more skill, a better puck touch in Artturi Lehkonen that changes the makeup then of the top six generally.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't completely solve all of their problems, but in talking about Nathan MacKinnon, he is made better when he gets to play alongside a player of that caliber. It just complements what they're trying to do, and those are two players that see the game very similarly as well. So it just makes the top six more of an offensive weapon too. I'm really looking forward to how this changes the complexion of the forward group, but also the penalty kill. And
yes.
I think that
great call.
They're going to probably ease him into games too. And so I don't know what his minutes will end up looking like. And so they might allow some of the PK guys that have been doing this throughout the year to stay on doing that. But this is just such a great defensive forward. We've talked about too, some of the issues that have happened in their own end have been related to missing some of these key players. That is just another part of their game that gets better with Lehkonen back.
Well, and then something else that Jared Bednar talked a little bit about there was how, and we've talked about this before, about one player, yes, all right, plugs into your top line. That pushes a guy down, who pushes a guy down, pushes a guy down. And, he used the term there. I think he was, they're put in better roles. They're put in more appropriate roles,
right?
For their skill level. Again, like you said, I felt bad for him because he used the Prishapov, sorry, Mark, examples on, he had a couple grade A's. Hey, they maybe go. I felt bad because I thought those were great plays by Prish. I thought, he pulled them both, to his backhand, tried to make a nice move. But again, no disrespect to players like him or Ivan. But ask those players. They probably feel a little bit more comfortable, down a couple of lines, not having to take on the same matchups that Nathan MacKinnon is getting. So it's got a trickle down effect. It's got a ripple impact on the roster. And I think your call out of the penalty kill, is outstanding. Truthfully, this morning, that thought had not gone through my mind about what a boost the penalty kill is going to get just by having him back. And again, you look at the power play. Yes, it improves PP1, but it also moves a player back to your second unit. So you don't have to rely so heavily on your top guys. It's not only what Lehkonen brings back, but it's the ripple effect, Megan.
And in looking at how PP1 changes, I think people will find this conversation interesting. But for right now, it looks like Lehkonen will just take the Ross Colton bumper spot.
Yep.
Take Ivan Ivans now bumper spot. And I think people are intrigued by that because of how great Lehkonen specifically is as that net front rover player. So I think it's worthy of discussion for even a second why Casey Middlestat will remain there when that's been Lehkonen's position before on the top unit and he's excelled there before. What do you think about that? And how do you imagine it just gets better even with Lehkonen in that middle bumper spot?
So you're saying, what do I think about when Drouin comes back?
No, for even right now, why not have Middlestat be bumper and have Lehkonen resume being the net front rover?
Front guy. I have to imagine that there's a level of it. I think they like Casey from behind the net. I think they like him distributing down there. And I just think that they have found a nice little bit of chemistry is not the right word, but I think they found a nice fit. The other thing I think that you're potentially looking at, and again, this is a good problem to have. We're going to get into it here in a second. You're 2 weeks from Val Nichushkin coming back. Are you maybe just putting Lehkonen in there because you're going to plug Val back in as your net front rover and you just want Lecky to start, fitting into that bumper spot a little bit? I don't know. To me, it screams more, we like what Casey has done.
I think so too. And I think they see a lot of goals have been converted from the bumper spot. So I think they see the value in a player like Lehkonen being there. And to your point, I do think Casey has found a place for himself, kind of being that rover in how he plays below the goal line and how he can find players specifically like Artturi Lehkonen from there. I think that is something people shouldn't underestimate because I think there have been some people concerned that Lehkonen wouldn't return to a place he's excelled in before. And the other part of it being, that's where Casey's been playing now through several games. He's got that experience under his belt. He's in that rhythm more so than a Lehkonen just making his season debut. Now, his reps on the top unit from the past absolutely matter here, but I think he has something to add in that bumper spot in terms of also complementing a player like McKinnon. Again, they see the game very similarly as well. I think it makes a lot of sense to have Lehkonen there.
Well, and again, I want to touch again on a point that you just made because I think it's important. We've talked so much about how this lineup is constantly been changing so far throughout the start of the season. There's constantly been guys being asked to, hey, I know you were doing this. Now can you do this? Hey, you were doing that. Now can you do this? Hey, you just got good at that. Can you now move to this spot? And I do think there's maybe just a small level of it of like, hey, this power play has been clicking with Casey Middlestat playing this role. Let's not overly disrupt that. We're fine rotating in and out this bumper guy because we've had a couple guys have success there, but we like what we're seeing out of Casey. Let's not disrupt it. And then again, like this is the part where it gets fun because you do start thinking about, okay, well, once Drouin comes back, once Nichushkin comes back, because then suddenly you've got the exact opposite problem. Then Ross Colton comes back and you're like, well, shit. Suddenly we have a second power play unit made up of a ton of guys who played really well in the first power play unit. And you're suddenly into this problem of, it's a much different problem of, man, we might have too many good players for this line or for this unit. And again, I know we're talking special teams and that's, niche, but I really do. I think this is we're going to try to keep a little bit of consistency for a player who we've liked what he's done there.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to change that conversation once more guys start coming back. I recall a time where Val Nichushkin was on PP2 just briefly because they had a Lehkonen option that they really liked there. I think we're going to find ourselves having a similar conversation. Like you said, a great problem to have. And it's within arm's reach, It feels like it's within the 7 to 10 day window very specifically.
Anything else on Lehkonen? I just think that it's going to be a huge morale boost for the team, if nothing else, tomorrow.
You could see the difference already.
I'm excited to see him back, although we were laughing upstairs. he comes back. There's the big media scrum, and he's still just Lecky.
I was in the Mark, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I was in that scrum, so I didn't even get to really see Lecky until he had just finished up. So I'm relying on you to do the heavy lifting and give us the play-by-play.
I mean, it was a lot of short answers, very hard to hear, very sounds like he's got something else to say.
I saw some smiles.
Yes, yeah, he had some smiles. Evan asked him about the red non-contact
That's
jersey.
when I saw the smile.
He was like, "Nope, not wearing it. Didn't want to wear it anymore." But he was asked about, hey, is there anything that you can take from watching the game from out, up high, and sitting out? And he goes, no. End of question. Evan goes, when you got the surgery, you started the recovery process, did you know it would be about this long? Yeah. I was like, all right. Lecky's back. Good to have him back. Good to have him back. All right. You mentioned 7 to 10 days potentially. Let's talk about Val Nichushkin, who was out at practice today for the Avs, participating in practice, not just at the facility. Meghan, he's officially back in the fold of things. Just for you, with everything that's been around this, what was it like to see Val Nichushkin step onto the ice today?
It feels a little surreal, right? You're kind of waiting for this other shoe to drop, like, okay, well, what's the piece of bad news that comes with this? Like, he can resume practicing with the team, but he won't get reinstated. There's going to be some kind of hiccup there, and I'm not trying to speak that onto the situation. It's more so, it's been an interesting road to getting here, going back to the playoffs through now, just the wave of emotion and the initial shock and disappointment of it. Then as you had a few months to process, the concern over when he does come back, how is he going to be received? Seeing him on the ice today just made everything feel a little bit more real. Like, this is a player that can return to the lineup for real. At the start of the year, when we're trying to figure out this puzzle that is the forward group, like, will Landeskog return? What's going on with Artturi Lehkonen? Will Nichushkin ever return? Will they forgive him? Will they try to trade him? Will he go to the KHL? Just seeing him here today made it very real that they're getting him back.
Mm-hmm.
And he seems well received. And I've been asked that question. It's a little hard to speak on that too intelligently, but he seems well received by my view of things. And just seeing him out there as early as he was, I think there's an excitement from him that you can appreciate. I think there's going to be some amount of accountability that he needs to take on the media facing side. I don't need very much personally, but I do want to hear from him because I imagine this has been very challenging for him. I can't wait to hopefully have the opportunity to hear from him too, but it got more real today.
So I want to address that part of it too, because I did a radio hit on the way down from the practice facility to here. And that was the first question they asked, was about, do we think he's going to talk? And when he came back last year, he didn't. And Meghan, like there's been some people who've like given the media us a hard time about not pressing anymore. And I understand that. I get where that's coming from. When he spoke last year, he and the Avs really did frame it as like, this is a personal issue. We're going to move on. He's back. We're moving on. And everyone kind of accepted it and said, okay, you know what? We're not going to hold his feet to the fire. He's saying that he's owned up to it, that he dealt with everything he needed to internally. He doesn't owe us anything. We'll let it go. I think the Avs and Val Nichushkin understand this time around it's different.
It's not an option.
It's not an option. You not only do you have to do a media availability, you have to confront it. And I don't think people are just going to let it go. It's all out there now. It's all out in the open. Everybody knows. Now, again, I do think it'll be interesting to see how they do it. Do they take him to a podium so they can maybe be a little bit more in control of calling on folks? Because I think if you just let it go, there's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of questions for Val Nichushkin.
And I think back to the availability we were given after the Seattle incident, and he was kind of guiding how that scrum went. it was
Yes.
short-lived, and he kind of refused to answer certain things and just repeated the same answer to different questions. That also has to be different. You know, I
Right.
understand that there is a little bit of the language barrier, and he's going to be coached in some of his responses, but I don't think that will be acceptable either, to just repeat the same answer
No.
to different questions. I think there's gonna need to be a little bit more and different this time, and I think it's for the benefit of Val Nichushkin to own up to this in that way.
Well, and the all of this was made so much worse by the YouTube videos this summer.
The timing of them, it's yeah.
That's going to be the other part of this too. It's the timing of it. Is that because of when he did the interviews came before this most recent incident, and then after the most recent incident, you have Chris McFarland come out and say, we're setting the record straight. Here's what happened. And then the videos come out
Right.
where Val Nichushkin basically says only things that contradict what Chris McFarland said.
Attributes the issues to a completely different problem, and that inhibits growth. You know, the lack of honesty with himself inhibits the ability to really rehabilitate. And that's why I think it's going to be important for him to be honest. He doesn't have to completely bare his soul to us.
Right.
But I do think talking to us is a step in that puzzle.
Well, and you know, Megan, because we got a comment here that says, I don't think he'll say anything meaningful. He doesn't owe us, the media, a thing. He doesn't owe us a thing. He owes his teammates an explanation. And I don't typically feel this way on this type of stuff. But in this instance, Megan, he owes the fans an explanation.
Yeah.
Maybe explanation isn't the right word.
We're a vehicle to bringing that too. Like
Right.
it's again, to your point, it's not because we need to hear anything specifically on a
Nope.
personal level. It's to deliver that message to the fans, because to your point, I do think that they deserve something of an explanation.
Because I thought it was the way that Jared Bednar put it the last time that we talked to him before Val was back in town. And he said that there needs to be forgiveness in the room of Val. The team needs to forgive Val. And I completely agree with that. But he said that Val needs to understand what he put the team through and the heartache that they went through and all of the work and everything that they had put in. He had a role in that coming unraveled at the end of the season. And there's so much that you can equate to fans as well. The time, the emotion, the effort, the money spent by fans to watch this team. Again, I don't think he owes the media a thing. And I say that as a member of the media. He owes his teammates and the members of that organization an explanation, and he owes the fans some words. And I just don't think that you can tap dance around it completely this time the way that he was able to last time. Now, let's talk about Val Nichushkin's impact on the ice, because at the end of the day, that's what people care about. Here he is stepping back onto the ice this morning with the team, his first official skate with the group today. But Megan, I mean, look, you cannot just completely brush past him, being away, why he was away, 3 different offenses, this, that, and the other. This is an elite two-way forward. For my money, Megan, one of the best defensive wings in the game. What does he do for the Avs when he comes back? According to Jared Bednar, potentially as early as the 15th.
Yeah, he changes the complexion of the top 9, right? Like their top 6 has sort of struggled to make the second line as competitive as it can be. And when Casey Middlestat signed his extension this summer, you salivated a little bit at the opportunity for him to get to play with players like Lehkonen and Nichushkin and what they'd be capable of doing together. And it's in large part because of who Nichushkin is. and it's been sorely missed. It's a very similar conversation as the Lehkonen one, but he's just such a powerful force to be reckoned with on the ice that I think there are so few players that possess the power that he has in addition to the skill. And if there's something we have come to know about Val Nichushkin, it's his consistency in how he approaches preparing for the games, the conditioning side of it. And so I also feel a confidence that in getting ready to return to play as soon as November 15th, he's going to be very ready. I think that, it'll still take him some games to shake the rust off and fully ramp up to a version of him that we've seen in season before, but I think it's still going to be a really impressive player, even coming out of having not played hockey the last couple of months. And it just makes such a huge difference in terms of, people refer to the Avs as top heavy, and I think that we haven't really gotten to see the weight of that yet this season and how they're constructed by design to be the team that has a Mikko Rantanen on wing, a Lehkonen on wing, McKinnon down the middle, now Drouin's in the mix. It by design is meant to be led by its stars, and it just hasn't had that chance, and Val Nichushkin helps that.
There's a couple comments here I want to get into really fast. I want to keep building on what you're talking about there, but a couple that have come through that I thought were kind of interesting. This one here. As a fan and a person who had a family member struggle with an addiction, he doesn't owe us a thing. If anything, we need to show him a positive response. I agree with parts of this. I wholeheartedly agree with the last part there. And I think that goes a little bit hand in hand with what we were saying Jared Bednar was talking about. There's got to be some forgiveness and some understanding that this is a person who's struggling to, go through things the same way that everyone else is in life, just they're doing it under a microscope, right? But I do also think, look, it's pretty well documented out there that this is an issue that he's dealing with, that is, an addiction. So while I agree with that, like I said, he doesn't owe us in the media a thing. He doesn't have to get up, whatever. There is, and this comes from people who I know who are much closer to this situation than I am. There's a level of personal accountability here, given the circumstances of this.
I think too, in having people in my life that I know that have struggled with substance abuse, when I talk about the value of Val Nichushkin addressing the media and trying to make the distinction that it's not for me personally, I actually think it's for Val.
Yes.
It is to take control of his narrative. I think that shame is something that can become insurmountable. It just builds and builds, and one way to combat it is sort of to take control of that narrative, tackle it head on, and sort of assign a new connotation then to whatever your challenges might be. I think that's why it's important. I look at the Sam Girard path and how there were media reports that he was dealing with, I want to say, insomnia as well, and he came out from his own personal camp and dispelled that and addressed exactly what was going on in his life
and how it was affecting him. I think, one, that opened the door for sympathy. Not that that needs to be the reason Val does it, but I do think you'll yield a more positive response with a little bit of transparency. But I genuinely think it is in the best interest of Val and his rehabilitation to approach this from an honesty standpoint and taking ownership of it. I think that's how he also begins to shed some of the shame that I'm not going to project that on him. I don't know if he's dealing with shame specifically, but I think that you can
is
imagine
one
how
way,
he might be.
Exactly. I think that's one way to begin shedding some of the shame personally.
Well, and it is also just not to over pontificate here with something that is super obvious to everyone. Like, the old saying, like, the first step in dealing with addiction is admitting to yourself that you got a problem. And again, Val Nichushkin is probably way past that phase of things. But again, I just keep going back to what Jared Bednar said. He's got to understand how his actions impacted a lot of other people. I go back to what Jack Johnson said right after it all happened. He made his decisions. Like there is a level of this that Val Nichushkin has to own up and take some accountability for it, because when you have someone who's dealing with addiction of any kind, to your point, they need to acknowledge that there is something there that they need to take responsibility for before you can expect anybody else to say, you know what? It's all right. We moved on. We forgive you. We move past it. Val Nichushkin's got to face that head on with everybody to begin with. Someone asked, did anybody go up and greet or talk to him? No, we were held out of the room till Val Nichushkin. I don't know if that was why we were held out of the room, but by the time we got in there, Val had already left. So we didn't even get to talk to him. No one got the chance to even go up and say hi, welcome back, anything like that. I'm sure that'll get a little bit more lenient the closer we get to the date. We won't be able to talk to him probably until the 15th, but I'm sure there'll at least be able to be some interaction. Then this question, what does the green jersey mean? That has been what the fourth line has been skating in so far this season. So he was the extra on the fourth line today. Megan, I agree with you with what you're saying, that not taking anything away from Artturi Lehkonen, but this kind of has the same effect that Lehkonen has, but maybe 1.5x. Just his combination of size, speed, skill. I don't know if there's another player in the league built like Val Nichushkin.
No, he's pretty special, and you hear from opponents playing opposite him. It's what makes him so difficult to play against. He is like a freight train on the ice.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Decent hands too.
Yeah, there's a reason the choo-choo train thing has stuck. Again, I'm not meaning to harp on it this much, but I think there's some great comments that are coming through. Got to break the first time, the second time, but this is the third time that this has happened. He's in a real unique situation, and he needs to just address it. That's the other thing with this. Twice, we have kind of let him off the hook. This is the third time he has gone through this. He needs to address it. I also think, Megan, I think you just made such a good point of like, to address it and start turning the page on it. Because the more that you just keep it to yourself and keep everyone at arm's length, like, the easier it is for people to turn on you when things start going wrong, to not support you because they don't understand. Bring people in, help them understand. And I think every Avs fan is going to move on and embrace him immediately. I think the team is going to embrace him immediately. Also agree with this. I just feel like it's up to the team and management to hold him to accountability and feel like they have a fellow Russian forward in Kovalenko around his age could be a good thing. Like, at the end of the day, fans, media, all that aside, it is on the team and the management to make sure that he fits back in the way that he needs to.
Yeah, and that's where we feel there's maybe a confidence that he'll be able to assimilate quickly and be well received. I think there are a lot of friends to him on that team, and that's probably what makes it sting, is these guys care about each other on a personal level too, and so everything that he's been dealing with, I think, makes the disappointment, that feeling of being let down, hurt just a little bit more.
Yep. No, I completely agree, Megan. Anything else on Val? We've still got a couple weeks till he's back, but November 15th is the date. We'll have plenty more to talk about as we get closer, but anything else for today?
No.
All right, let's move on here. To the other injury update that we got, and Megan, I will be honest, I didn't love this one. Gabe Landeskog. Evan Rowell said, hey, look, Jared, you told us hoping for the early part of the season, and Evan even acknowledged that can mean a lot of different things. So not holding Jared's feet to the fire on, you said the beginning of the year, where is he? But we haven't seen him, Megan, in a month and a half on the ice after seeing him semi-regularly there for several weeks. Jared Bednar said he's feeling better. He's about to get back on the ice. We'll just see. That to me, Megan, I don't know. I'm going to stop just shy of saying setback, but that sounds to me like things stopped progressing the way that they wanted them to. What was your take on Jared Bednar's comments about Gabe Landeskog?
It was similar, that there was either a setback or something stagnated. And so it's not necessarily that something went wrong, but something wasn't progressing forward. And my understanding, based on Bednar's answer, is that prompted some kind of a pause from the on-ice activity specifically. So it's still a little bit concerning to hear that. I guess I need to ask some more follow-up questions, like the distinction of setback versus stagnancy.
Yes.
What prompted this specifically, or is this all according to plan, and did early season just mean something a little bit different?
Mhm.
Because to your point, Bednar was quick to kind of say, well, we're here, aren't we?
Yeah.
As if what was believed to be early season to them has passed.
Yes.
So that I didn't love, because to me, I always imagined at one point like a November time frame. Now the people on the Nashville broadcast, they're hearing Christmas time. I don't know where they're getting that specifically,
Mhm.
but that would have fallen in alignment with what early season could mean to me.
Totally.
So that isn't the problem. I think it was Bednar seemingly addressing the fact that they believe this might have happened sooner than
Right.
it has.
There
Than
were
we've seen.
there were two comments made on back-to-back weekends, one from Jerry Bednar, one from Gabe Landeskog himself. It was the early season followed by the a matter of when, not if, from Gabe Landeskog. And I think it just maybe skewed some timelines a little bit, those two comments. I'm going to be anxious to see him when he gets back onto the ice, because with this type of injury, the sensitivity of the area and what Gabe Landeskog is needing his knee to do, man, Megan, like just any type of stagnation, I think is a great word, or setback, just really makes me nervous. And the fact that we'd stopped seeing him on the ice tells me that something wasn't right.
I think too, just looking at a bigger picture view of how the Avs have been handling injuries over the last couple of years now, I know we experience frustration that we hear one timeline and it ends up being longer. Very seldom has it ever been a timeline that ends up being shorter than we expected. Like with the Dren timeline recently, it's been a lot longer than we were led to believe after that, season opener in Vegas. And even similarly, Lehkonen's timeline felt targeted towards the start of the season, somewhere in there, and it's just been a little bit longer past that point. Points to a medical staff that proceeds with so much caution, like ultra caution around injuries and players, and especially given the nature of Landeskog's injury, I don't doubt that they are treating it so delicately with caution that who knows what kind of a blip could prompt taking a pause. It might not be anything that significant, but for the purpose of caution is significant enough to get him to take a step back from the on-ice activity, because there's no sense in not doing this the right way.
Right.
His career hangs in the balance as it is.
Yep.
So you might as well just do it the right way. Landeskog, in the event that we had gone to earlier in the year, used the word patience, which feels very telling now in hindsight that he probably even knew then that the path to returning to play is going to be longer than maybe he expected a month ago.
So, Megan, I'm so glad you brought that up, because to me, when you spoke with him one-on-one at that event, he seemed like he had a different tone
He did.
than the last time he had spoken publicly. And I never wanted to put anything out there after you did that interview, because it was purely just me speculating based on his tone and the select words that he chose to use. But I was like, ooh, that sounds less optimistic than the last time we talked to you. You're right. His career is what's at stake here. So to me, I don't have an issue with them taking an extra month, 2 months, 3 months. What is that at this point? He's missed 2 full seasons. Take the extra month. Take the extra 2 months. Who cares? You're trying to decide if Gabe Landeskog can ever play in the NHL again. So your options are wait and you hope you get him back at 80% of the player he was, or he just doesn't come back. Those are your only two options. So like when people ask, like, gosh, shouldn't the Avs just move on and just cut ties and be done with it already? It's like, for what? Who does that benefit?
You rush him back too, and you run the risk of making the decision for him that a future in the NHL just won't exist.
Yep.
I think that's the risk. And I'm not hearing anything to indicate something has changed so gravely that he's not returning to play at all.
Right.
I've not heard anything like that.
Me either.
Just feels like something based on a previous timeline has gone a little bit off track. but I don't think it points to him not making an attempt to return at all.
I agree with that, and I'll be anxious to see if he does get on the ice here soon. Because again, we don't know. We don't know what the plan. This could be part of the plan. Now, again, Jared Bednar didn't necessarily say that today,
Right.
But like for all we know, it's supposed to have been, yes, you're on the ice, then you're off the ice, then you're on the ice, then you're off the ice, then you're on the ice, then you're off the ice, and then with hopefully, the plan being, then you're just on the ice. So this could be something where he was really pushing it, and then it was a scheduled 8 weeks you don't get on the ice. Because that was, we know, at one point what they were doing. He was specifically going through stretches where he was not getting on the ice intentionally. This feels a little bit different than that, just based on what has been told to us and based on what our eyes have seen. But again, just for devil's advocate here, I kind of lost my train of thought. But, I'm going to be curious to see what he looks like when he gets back on the ice.
100%. And it'll just be a welcome sight.
Right. Because if he's out there and he looks to be pushing it the same or even harder than he was when we saw him 2 months ago, right before camp, about a month and a half ago, right before camp, then it's like, oh, okay. All part of the plan. Maybe a minor setback somewhere in there, but more or less, he looks good. If we see him back out there and he's back to C cuts and only doing things on one leg, then I will be concerned, because when we saw him last, that was the best I thought he had looked.
I think so. And I think the other thing is doing this in the public eye is probably very hard. If he does return to on-ice activity, it might not be in public view in the beginning. And so it's just worth it for us to continue to check in regularly with the Landeskog debacle and just see maybe maybe in the near future he is getting on the ice. We're just not seeing it.
Yeah, because that is the other thing too. Val Nichushkin skated pretty much every day for the last 2 weeks, and there was only like 2 or 3 of them that were documented by anybody.
Right.
So the Avs do have availability to a lot of ice that these guys can skate on without us seeing.
Definitely.
Megan, just briefly, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this one. I asked Jared Bednar about it because I just think it's been kind of interesting. You'd prefer the lineup to be full of NHL regulars, but that hasn't been the reality. And I think almost exclusively the call-ups for the Avs this season have made it not necessarily difficult for the Avs to send them back down in favor of guys like Lehkonen and Nichushkin, etc. But man, when they had Ivan in the lineup, you're like, man, Ivan's going to make it really hard for them to send him down. And you see Prishapov come up, and it's like, man, he looks really good. Steinberg, I thought looked good before he kind of went a little bit rogue there. But like these guys that they've called up, I think have been impactful. And I think if nothing else, they have done a great job of saying, hey, Ivan on your radar, Prishapov on your radar. You have to like what you've seen from these kids so far.
Absolutely. It feels like a huge amateur scouting department win, especially in looking at players like Kovalenko and Prishapov, who are later round picks, and then an Ivan who went undrafted and got a dev camp invite and turned that into an American League contract to an NHL contract. That's pretty impressive scouting then, in my opinion. And then in the case of an Ivan, he gets a year in the American League to sort of get acclimated to the organization and the way that they want to play. So you can look to his success and point to that a little bit. Prishapov has played 6 games in the American League. First training camp, first preseason with the organization, just a few months removed from his draft. And similarly, Kovalenko just came over from the KHL, got in the playoffs, and just had a great camp from there. So to their credit, haven't even had as much time in the organization to get settled, and it's been seamless for each of them. And they each have sort of different things about their game, and you can recall different ways that they've been noticeable in games. I think it's just such a huge win for the type of player that they're looking for to come and be added to the depth pipeline. I think, in the past, you could get caught up in some of the numbers from major junior guys who were big scorers, big producers, and you just want to see if you can get some of that at the pro level, whereas these guys have more dimension in their game. And I think that's why it's translating really well when they get brought into the Avs lineup. And I've loved it. I've loved what, on an individual level, they're challenging themselves to do too. Like, I
Yes.
have to give credit to each individual player for being capable of it too. I don't want to broad brush it, say it's just great scouting. They've just picked some great kids who have a hungry, strong, driven work ethic, and I think that has translated really well.
Well, I keep thinking about what Brian Wilsey told you in LA at the beginning of the season about we try to get them ready to be able to play up and down the lineup because your preferred role may not be available with the Avalanche. And like I look at a guy like Ivan, who's played all over the lineup so far, came in a fourth line role, then got moved up to a third line role, then moonlighted a little bit in the top six, then suddenly one night found his name next to Nathan McKinnon's before puck drop, scores his first NHL goal on power play 1. Like, there is something to say, and I forget the verbiage that you literally just used, but again, just being able to play kind of wherever. These kids have just shown, hey, come in, plug us in. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to move our feet. We're going to get to the right areas. And yes, they are still minor league players on call-ups. So they're not exactly what you want or what you need. And you have to shorten your bench a little bit. But I've just been impressed with the fact that how many times in the past have we heard fans, other people in media talk about like, oh, these guys don't get enough of a chance. When they get called up, they get stuck on a fourth line. They do nothing with their minutes. These are kids who have taken advantage of the minutes they've gotten, and as the injuries have piled up, have earned more opportunities and more chances, and have just continued to look like they belong. There's a comment that just came through that said they look good, but not good enough. I agree with that. I think everybody probably agrees with that.
Yeah, like Przhepov's 20 years old, just a few months away from the draft.
Right, where he was taken, what did we decide, 8th from last?
Right.
And the fact that he's been able to come in and look the way that he did in his first NHL game, you love it. You love it.
Yeah, like he doesn't even have many pro games to his name at that point in time, and he was even finding ways to make an impact. 3 points in 3 games, 4 points on the year through 6 games in the American League, getting moved all over the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
He played wing, he played center, he played first line, he played third line. He was all over the place with the Eagles lineup, but he found a way to be visible there, earns him the call-up because they're that deep into their depth chart at this point. And he plays nearly 15 minutes in his debut, whereas we've seen debuts get shortened to around 7 minutes and they don't register a single event.
Mm-hmm.
He gets 2 grade A opportunities, more attempts blocked, he's hitting throughout the game.
Well,
That's the difference.
He had 2 grade A's that were stopped by Saros, and then, in my opinion, a third one where he just gets his stick tied up. Otherwise, he was going to punch a puck into an empty net. Like, he was all over the ice. And again, to me, these are guys who came in and were given the exact same opportunity as AJ Greer was when he was an Abs call-up, 7-8 years ago. Fourth line, go out there and make what you can of your minutes, go bang some bodies, move your feet. And in Ivan's instance, he did that. He did it well enough that he got a little bit more responsibility. And I just think that, yes, you'd rather have Lehkonen and Nichushkin and Drouin and, the list goes on. You'd rather have those guys, of course. But for what you've gotten out of these young players, like I just think that the Avs are probably like, all right, nice. It felt really dire going into last summer. Like, this prospect pipeline is empty.
Right,
the Avs
are empty.
The Avs are in trouble. They've got nobody that has any trade value that would be any good to them. Da, 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 da. Well, that's maybe not quite so much the case as we thought.
No, like I look at the back end and how you don't want to touch Sam Malinsky at this point, and unless break glass in case of emergency, you don't want to touch Barons either. And then Mikhail Guliev's still there in the pipeline. Now on the forward side, it's gotten intriguing because Ivan's 22, Przhepov's 20. They're still very young, and so they go and spend some more time in the American League if necessary, right? Like, I don't know where Ivan ends at the end of this, but that just means more development. And Przhepov didn't seem to have any issues finding ways to make an impact and contribute at the American League level. I don't doubt that that's what he's going to do when he inevitably gets returned and just continues to develop there.
Well, to your point about Ivan, no, not trying to take a shot at Parker Kelly, but Ivan's play has put him in that conversation where it's like, well, hold on. it is not necessarily a set and forget that Ivan gets sent back down once the Avs get healthy. There's a world where he hangs around here. Kovalenko, another guy that we really haven't brought up here. But again, hasn't been perfect through every game, but given that he's playing in his first NHL regular season games, you like what you've seen. We'll wrap up with this, Megan. Avs welcoming in the Seattle Kraken tomorrow. They've already made a visit to Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle earlier this season, where they got a win. Is there anything I sometimes kind of fucking hate this question? I'm like, what do you need to see? But like, you're getting Lehkonen back. Is it really just as simple as, yeah, let's get back to that formula that they had going during that 5-game winning streak? But now plus a couple players?
I'm going to sound like a broken record from our post-game show, but I felt the Avs deserved a better fate then. I think that process-wise, they've been doing a lot of the right things, to include in the Nashville game for at least 40 minutes of it. And I think
you're so right.
They have deserved a better fate, and it's bound to reward them sooner rather than later. You look at the whole of the season. I've talked about it a little already. They are creating opportunities. They're creating a lot of high danger opportunities. Mikko Rantanen included, you haters. The lack of finish is something that is affecting the whole team right now. You know, they're like third worst in the league in terms of the luck stat PDO. That is bound to change. It's going to break their way sooner rather than later, as long as they continue to do what they've been doing, button up some of the details. They get reinforcement in a great player that just makes their top 6 better. We talked about how that probably improves then execution. They really just have to continue to stick to the process. I know that sounds so cliche, but they've beat this team before. So they just need to also channel a little bit of what brought them success there before and support their goaltender. You know,
your point about the way they played for the first 40 in Nashville, I shouldn't have glazed over that one. I really do. I think they did so many things process-wise well in that game. And then it really did, to me, just look like they ran out of gas.
Which is all right. That's fair.
Understandable. Your bench is having to be shortened right now in a way that it typically isn't. So I think you're totally right. Can you bottle that up and repeat it? But now with someone back in instead of someone coming out. Yes.
A new life force.
We're going to start trying stuff a little bit different for our Tuesday episode starting tomorrow. Nothing crazy different, but just a little bit of a different flow to the show. So we'll be back tomorrow. There was a comment that came through about goalies. I want to talk more about goalies, Megan, because I do think the Avs are in an interesting situation here with the 3 goalies. Jared Bednar has already come out and said, we cannot keep 3. The minute we start getting any of these guys back in quantity, we've got to move on from one. I just want us to dive a little bit deeper, maybe tomorrow, into this situation that the Avs are faced right now with their goaltending, with the fact that you got 3 guys, 2 of which in Kakinen and Georgiev haven't given you a ton to be ultra excited about. Justus Annunen, I think, looks good, but I get the sense, Megan, that they still just a teeny bit wary and hesitant of handing the reins over to Justus. Do you get that same sense?
No, I do. And that's where, though I have felt Annunen has pulled ahead a little bit in the competition, he's not separated enough to solidly earn any title. You know, starter, designated backup. Nothing has been decided yet through what we've seen so far, in my opinion. And so no matter who gets the start tomorrow, like, so much more information is needed. But whoever does get that start, it is so important. Because no one's really separated and just run ahead away with the whole thing. There's an expression there that I definitely butchered.
I wouldn't even have noticed that you butchered it, Megan, had you not said that. You're right, though. Again, I think Justus, you feel the best about.
Definitely.
But I still think you're far from like, whew, all right, no worry, just put Justus Annunen in and you'll be good. Not quite there yet.
Yeah, you want to feel really good by at least one of these guys.
Yes.
But you want to feel really good by all 3, ideally. Make this a competition.
Right.
Make this really a difficult decision.
You'd love for it to be a difficult decision. And right now it feels like it's a difficult decision just because you're like, okay, someone jump up and grab this thing.
Exactly.
Like let someone do something with it. And you just want 2 of these guys to really start separating themselves from a third, or to your point, be in a situation where it's like, man, we got to make a tough decision here and maybe even get some trade value in one of these guys and move them for something. Megan, anything else to add on this Monday afternoon?
No, we'll be back at it again tomorrow.
Yep.
Might take a more around the league look at things, but we
Yeah.
can also preview the Seattle game a little more closely too. And I'm excited for it.
Me too. I'm always excited to chat hockey with you, Meg Daddy. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning at Morning Skate. We'll have plenty of content coming. Hey, Mark, are you going to be at Morning Skate with us? Are you going to be at Morning Skate tomorrow? Yeah, Mark will be there. So we'll be there bringing you guys the best looking shots around everything in the locker room. Jared Bednar will have a breakdown for you guys in the morning. Then we will have a pod at our regularly scheduled time. I got pulled into a call at the very kind of last minute, so we had to push it an hour. So thank you for adjusting your schedule for that. And thank all of you for tuning in an hour later. Yes, like Megan said, we'll be taking a little bit of a step back and looking around the league tomorrow, but we will definitely still be talking Avs to some extent. Jay back there running the board, making sure you guys can see us, hear us, get everything played. We always appreciate all of his efforts. Chloe's out sick today, so Jay's actually been running around a little bit extra crazy. So thank you, Jay, for everything that you guys are doing today. For Jay, that's Megan. I'm Jesse. Thanks so much, guys. We will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.